Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are exploring Dr. Mindy Pelz's groundbreaking book, Fast Like a Girl.
Really excited for this one.
Yeah, me too. Our mission for this deep dive is to uncover exactly why traditional, one-size-fits-all health advice, especially when it comes to fasting and dieting,
Yeah.
has just spectacularly failed women.
And it really has.
It has. And more importantly, we are going to look at how to harness the healing power of fasting by syncing it with the female hormonal cycle.
Right.
But before we get into the how, we kind of have to start with a pretty shocking reality check. A massive study from a few years ago revealed that only 12% of Americans are metabolically healthy.
Which is, just think about that for a second.
12%.
Yeah.
And to make this even more personal, Dr. Pelz's own origin story starts with a massive health crash. At just 19 years old, she was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. She was told by a top doctor to drop out of school, take trial medications, and basically just wait and hope.
Which is devastating at 19.
Right. But instead of doing that, she completely reversed her condition in 3 weeks, simply by changing her diet. So, okay, let's unpack this. How does simply changing what and when we eat completely rewrite our health? And why is diet culture so intensely frustrating for so many of you out there?
Well, that frustration is entirely justified, and it really stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of human biology. If we connect this to the bigger picture, poor metabolic health is really the root cause of the modern chronic disease crisis.
Right, the things we see everywhere now.
Exactly. We are talking about everything from Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease to infertility and autoimmune conditions. What Dr. Pelz discovered, and what the science now overwhelmingly supports, is that fasting is a free, universally accessible tool that most of the medical world is completely ignoring.
It's just sitting right there.
Right. Instead of utilizing our body's natural healing mechanisms, we've been pushed into these dieting strategies that actually work against our biology.
Which brings us to a major concept in the book, the Fail 5. These are the 5 reasons traditional diets have failed you. And I really want you to hear this loud and clear. If you have struggled to lose weight or keep it off, it is not your fault.
Not at all.
The system was literally designed against your biology. So let's look at the first massive failure, which is calorie restriction. We've all heard the golden rule of diet culture, right? Eat less, move more. Why is that such bad advice?
What's fascinating here is a famous piece of research from the 1960s called the Minnesota Starvation Experiment. Researchers took a group of healthy men and put them on a progressive calorie-restricted diet until they were eating about 1,500 calories a day.
Which, ironically, is what a lot of modern diets recommend for weight loss today.
Exactly. And the psychological and physical results were disastrous. These men became completely obsessed with food, they started hoarding recipes, they couldn't focus on daily tasks, and they became deeply anxious, depressed, and socially withdrawn.
I mean, that sounds like the mental state of almost anyone who's been on a strict diet for a few weeks. You just can't stop thinking about your next meal.
Yeah, because it is a direct biological response to starvation. But the most startling part of the experiment happened when it ended. When the men started eating normally again, they didn't just gain the weight back.
Oh, no.
They gained it all back, plus an extra 10%. Eating less actually trains your metabolic set point to be lower. Your body thinks it's entering a famine.
Right.
So when you return to normal eating, your metabolism has slowed down, and your body aggressively stores those extra calories as fat to protect you against the next famine.
So that completely explains the yo-yo dieting trap. You aren't lacking willpower. Your metabolism has literally been trained to hoard fat.
Exactly.
But what about when we are eating? I know the book dives into poor food quality and how it affects insulin. I hear the term insulin resistance all the time. But what is actually happening in the body when we eat highly processed diet foods?
Think of insulin resistance like a cellular traffic jam. Every time you eat a sugar-dense, highly processed meal, your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's job is to act like an escort.
Okay.
It takes that sugar from your bloodstream and unlocks the doors to your cells so the sugar can be used for energy. But if you are constantly eating low-fat, high-sugar foods, which so many diet foods are, your cells are getting flooded. Eventually, the cell receptors get overwhelmed, and they essentially become deaf to insulin. The doors stay closed.
Meaning the sugar is just stuck in the bloodstream, right? Where does the body put it all?
It has to go somewhere, so your body converts that excess sugar and stores it as fat. And that ties directly into the third failure, which doesn't even require you to eat a single bite of food to cause weight gain.
Wait, really?
Yeah. That is the issue of cortisol surges. There is a term out there called rushing woman's syndrome. Women are incredibly sensitive to stress. When you are on a rigid, restrictive diet or just living a frantic, overscheduled life, your brain perceives that chronic stress as a literal life or death crisis.
Like a predator is chasing you.
Exactly. It triggers a fight or flight response, spiking your stress hormone, cortisol.
And how does that stress hormone actually translate to gaining weight?
When cortisol spikes, it tells your liver to dump stored glucose into your bloodstream. The biological logic is that you need immediate energy to run from that tiger.
But you aren't running from a tiger. You're just stressed out answering emails.
Right. So now you have a surge of glucose in your blood, and as we just discussed, insulin rises to meet it. You are storing fat and overwhelming your cells, all entirely from stress.
You can literally stress yourself into gaining weight. That is
Yeah.
wild. And that brings us to another huge blind spot the book talks about: toxic ingredients, specifically a category of chemicals called obesogens.
Yes.
These are synthetic chemicals like BPA and plastics, MSG, and various preservatives.
This is a crucial point because your body simply doesn't know how to process man-made chemicals. If these toxins are left free-floating in your bloodstream, they could cause severe damage to your vital organs, your heart, your liver, your brain.
So what does the body do with them?
It intelligently sequesters these toxins by wrapping them up and storing them inside your fat cells. Your fat is literally trying to save your life.
That is such a powerful shift in perspective. When you look in the mirror and feel frustrated by stubborn weight, it helps to reframe it. Your body is doing its best to protect you from a toxic environment.
It really changes how you treat yourself.
It does. And that leads us to the final of the failed five, the one-size-fits-all approach. Treating a woman's body like a man's body is a fatal flaw in modern diet culture.
It is the fatal flaw. But before we can understand why women need a completely different approach to fasting and food, we need to understand what a healthy metabolism actually looks like and why fasting is so powerful in the first place.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You actually have two completely different energy systems in your body. But if we are constantly eating, we only ever use one of them. How do we actually tap into the other system?
The best way to visualize this is to think of your body like a hybrid car. When you eat, you're running on gas. That's your sugar burner system. But when you stop eating, typically about 8 hours after your last meal, your body makes a switch. It flips over to the electric battery, which is your fat burner or ketogenic system. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors went through natural cycles of feasting and fasting. They had to hunt and forage on empty stomachs, meaning they had to be sharp, energized, and focused while relying purely on stored fat for fuel.
I know there's a great analogy for this in the book, The Garage Freezer. Because people always ask, if I have this fat-burning system, why am I not losing weight?
Think of your body's energy storage like a house. When you eat, you put the extra food in the kitchen fridge. That represents the glycogen stored in your liver and muscles for easy access. But when the fridge gets too full, you have to pack the rest of the food into the big, deep freezer out in the garage.
And that's the body fat.
Exactly. That represents the long-term energy stored in your fat cells. If you eat from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you are only ever opening the kitchen fridge. Fasting is the mechanism that finally forces your body to walk out to the garage, open up that freezer, and burn through the fat it's been storing for years.
Okay, so if I'm snacking all day, I'm just constantly opening the kitchen fridge. I never even walk out to the garage.
Nope.
But when we finally do go to the garage, something really incredible happens on a microscopic level. It's a process called autophagy, right?
Yes. The discovery of autophagy actually won the Nobel Prize in Medicine back in 2016. It was discovered by a Japanese scientist, and the word autophagy literally translates to self-eating.
Self-eating sounds a little terrifying, to be honest. Can you break that down for us?
I know it sounds alarming, but it's actually the ultimate cellular detox. When you fast, your cells sense that no new nutrients are coming in. So instead of focusing on digestion, they turn their attention inward. They start cleaning house.
Like a deep spring cleaning.
Exactly. They recycle old, damaged cell parts, they clear out lingering viruses, and they destroy rogue cells that could potentially turn into cancer. They dismantle the weak components to make themselves stronger and more resilient.
So fasting is essentially putting your cells into repair mode. But the book also talks about the opposite of that pathway called mTOR. How does that fit in?
So mTOR is your cellular growth pathway. It's stimulated when we eat, particularly when we consume protein. We absolutely need mTOR to build muscle and grow new tissue.
Okay.
But, and this is the critical balance, if we are constantly eating, we are constantly in a state of growth, which actually accelerates aging and cellular mutation. We need both. We need the fasting state, autophagy, to clean up the garbage, and the feasting state, mTOR, to build up the healthy structures. Moving between the two is what Dr. Pelz calls metabolic switching.
Okay, let's explore how we actually execute this metabolic switch. The book outlines a menu of 6 different lengths of fasts, each with its own superpower. Let's start at the bottom rung. Where does a beginner even begin?
You start with intermittent fasting, which is leaving a 12 to 16-hour window without food. This is your entry point. It's excellent for initial weight loss and, noticeably, for clearing out brain fog. This happens because your body starts producing ketones.
Wait, for those who haven't fallen down the keto rabbit hole, what exactly are ketones?
Ketones are an alternative fuel source. When your body starts burning stored fat, the liver converts that fat into ketones, which travel to the brain. The brain actually prefers ketones over glucose. It makes you feel incredibly focused and sharp.
That makes a lot of sense. And if I push past that 16-hour mark?
At 17 hours, you enter the autophagy fast. This is where that deep cellular detox we just talked about really kicks in. It's an incredible tool for boosting your immune system. If you feel a cold coming on, or you've just come back from a vacation where you overindulged and feel sluggish, a 17-hour fast is a fantastic reset.
What about going a full day? A 24-hour fast seems daunting, but the benefits sound massive.
It is massive. The 24-hour mark is the gut reset fast. Going a full day without food generates intestinal stem cells that actively repair your gut lining.
Wow.
Yeah, it is specifically recommended for undoing the damage caused by rounds of antibiotics or years of being on birth control pills, which can severely disrupt your microbiome.
And if someone is just totally stuck, like they've been doing intermittent fasting, but the scale just absolutely refuses to budge?
For weight loss resistance, you look at the 36-hour fat burner fast. Going 36 hours applies just enough hormetic stress to force the liver to release those stubborn, deep-stored sugars and cholesterol.
Let me stop you there. Hormetic stress. That's the concept of a good stress, right?
Yeah.
Like lifting heavy weights to tear a muscle so it grows back stronger?
Exactly. It's a temporary, controlled stress that triggers a powerful adaptation response in the body, making you metabolically stronger once the stress is removed. And if you extend that hormetic stress to 48 hours, you trigger the dopamine reset fast.
What dopamine reset?
Yes. This one is profoundly impactful for mental health. Fasting for 2 days actually helps your brain create new dopamine receptors and makes your existing ones more sensitive. It's an incredible tool for lowering anxiety and bringing joy back if you've been feeling numb or desensitized to everyday pleasures.
The idea that we can rewire our mental health just by changing our eating window is staggering. And there's one more, right? That's the longest one.
The 72-hour plus mark is the immune reset fast. This was pioneered by some really brilliant aging researchers. At 3 days of water fasting, your body essentially destroys old, ineffective white blood cells and releases a massive surge of fresh stem cells to rebuild your entire immune system from the ground up.
Incredible.
It's a powerful anti-aging and chronic disease prevention tool.
It's truly amazing what the body can do when we just get out of its way. But, and this is the most important pivot of this entire deep dive, women must approach all of this differently than men. The book features a cautionary tale about a woman named Bridget. Bridget was a type A high-tech executive. She started gaining stubborn weight in her early 40s. She heard about intermittent fasting and the keto diet, and being a high achiever, she went all in.
As they do.
Every single day, she kept her carbs super low and fasted for long hours. And at first, she felt superhuman. But 6 months in, the wheels completely fell off. She started having random panic attacks at her desk. Her heart was palpitating, she couldn't sleep. And the terrifying breaking point. She was in the shower, and her hair started falling out in clumps.
It's a deeply alarming scenario, but sadly, in the clinical world, it's not uncommon. This raises an important question. Why did this happen to Bridget when she was seemingly doing everything right according to popular diet culture? The answer is simple. She was fasting like a man.
What does that actually mean, to fast like a man?
Men operate on a very straightforward 24-hour hormonal cycle. They get a pulse of testosterone roughly every 15 minutes. A man can wake up, fast for 16 hours, eat a strict ketogenic diet, and do the exact same thing the next day and the next, and absolutely thrive.
Just rinse and repeat.
Exactly. Women, however, are governed by a complex cycle that averages 28 days. Women have three distinct sex hormones constantly ebbing and flowing throughout that month, and each one of those hormones reacts completely differently to fasting and carbohydrates.
Okay, this is the absolute core of Dr. Pelz's work. Can you break down that 28-day cycle and how a woman is supposed to navigate it?
Let's look at days 1 through 10 of the menstrual cycle, with day 1 being the first day of bleeding. During this time, the body is building estrogen.
Oh?
Estrogen is your best friend when it comes to fasting. It thrives when your blood sugar and insulin levels are low. So these first 10 days are the perfect time to push yourself. This is when you go for those longer 17-hour, 24-hour, or even 36-hour fasts. Estrogen loves that environment.
So the first third of the cycle is when you can really push the boundaries. What happens next?
Then we move into days 11 through 15, which is the ovulation phase. This is your peak power phase. During this window, you have estrogen surging, but you also have a surge of testosterone.
And testosterone makes you feel strong, motivated, and driven.
Yes. However, testosterone does not want you to push the stress levels too high. So during ovulation, you want to cap your fasts at a maximum of 15 hours. It's a great time to build muscle, lift heavier weights, and tackle difficult conversations, but you need to pull back slightly on the fasting intensity.
And then we hit the danger zone, right? The week before the period starts.
Yes, the week before your bleed is when progesterone takes over. And you have to remember this rule. Progesterone hates fasting.
It hates it.
It hates stress of any kind. And it absolutely requires higher glucose levels to develop properly. If you push through long fasts or stick to a strict low-carb diet during this week, your cortisol spikes. When cortisol goes up, progesterone plummets. This is exactly what happened to Bridget. She starved her progesterone, which led to the anxiety, the panic attacks, and the hair loss. During this week, you have to step out of the fasting ring and actually eat to nurture this hormone.
Okay, let me make sure I've got this because this is a huge paradigm shift for anyone listening. For the first half of my cycle, I can fast longer, keep my carbs lower, and really tap into that fat-burning state to support estrogen.
Correct.
But right before my period, I need to completely flip the script. I should stop fasting and actually eat more carbohydrates to build progesterone.
That is exactly the shift. And it makes so much sense when we look at something called the hormonal hierarchy, which is essentially the control tower in your brain.
Okay, how does that work?
The hierarchy dictates which hormones get prioritized. At the bottom, you have your sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Sitting above them is insulin. Above insulin is cortisol, your stress hormone. And sitting at the very top, the master switch, is oxytocin, the love and bonding hormone.
This hierarchy explains so much about the modern lifestyle. Because if you are stressed out from work or rigid dieting, your cortisol is high. High cortisol automatically tells your body to pump out insulin, which shuts down your sex hormones.
Yeah.
You cannot balance your estrogen or progesterone if you are living in a chronic state of stress.
You literally can't.
But oxytocin being at the top, that's the real superpower here.
It is. A surge of oxytocin will immediately shut down cortisol production. This means that laughing with a friend, hugging your partner, or simply petting your dog for a few minutes sends a profound neurochemical signal to your brain that you are safe. Cortisol drops, insulin drops, and your sex hormones can finally balance out.
I love that. Taking 5 minutes to pet your dog literally helps manage your weight and balance your hormones by lowering that cortisol response. That is amazing. But let's transition from when to eat to what to eat, because how you break your fast and what you feed those hormones is just as critical.
It is vital. And the first rule here is to abandon the calorie counting mindset entirely. We need to focus on ingredients, not calories. Dr. Pelz recommends always checking the first 4 ingredients on a label. If sugar is in the top 4, put it back. You also have to watch out for the GRS trap.
GRS stands for generally recognized as safe.
Right?
Why is that a trap?
It's an FDA loophole. It allows thousands of chemicals to be put into our food supply until they are definitively proven dangerous. You also have to be aware of the term natural flavors.
Oh, that one gets everyone.
It sounds wholesome, but it is frequently a legal hiding spot for chemical solvents, preservatives, and even hidden MSG. The goal is to eat foods that look like they came from nature, not a chemistry lab.
Once we clean up the ingredients, the book gets really specific about tailoring our macronutrients, our carbs, fats, and proteins to match our cycle. There are 2 specific styles of eating outlined, ketobiotic and hormone feasting. Let's start with ketobiotic.
You use the ketobiotic style of eating during the estrogen building days of your cycle. It involves keeping your net carbohydrates very low, under 50 grams a day. You keep your protein moderate, around 75 grams, and you load up on healthy fats.
And the biotic part of that name is crucial, right? How does that support estrogen?
Estrogen specifically loves phytoestrogens. These are naturally occurring plant-based compounds found in foods like seeds, nuts, and organic soy. They actually mimic estrogen in the body and help support healthy hormone levels while keeping your insulin wonderfully low.
Okay, so that's the estrogen phase. But then we switch to hormone feasting during the week before the period to support progesterone. How drastically do the macros change here?
You practically invert them. During this week, you increase your carbohydrates up to 150 grams a day and lower your protein to under 50 grams. Progesterone absolutely craves complex, nature-made carbohydrates. We are talking about sweet potatoes, squashes, tropical fruits, and citrus.
I really want to pause and emphasize this for the listener. Do not fear weight gain during this week. It is so deeply ingrained in diet culture to panic if we eat carbs, but your body literally requires these carbohydrates to manufacture progesterone. If you fight this natural craving because you're trying to be good on your diet, you are going to suffer the mood swings, the poor sleep, and the intense cravings. You just have to feed the hormone what it wants.
That is incredibly well said. In addition to feeding your hormones, you have to feed your microbiome, the trillions of bacteria in your gut that actually help break down and metabolize those hormones.
Right.
Dr. Pelz recommends focusing on the 3 PS probiotics, prebiotics, and polyphenols. Probiotics are fermented foods that introduce live, beneficial bacteria into your gut, things like kimchi, sauerkraut, and kefir. Prebiotics provide the fiber that acts as food for those bacteria, think garlic, onions, and asparagus. You are essentially feeding the microscopic pets in your gut.
And the third P is polyphenols. These are plant-based antioxidants that create a perfect environment for the bacteria to thrive. And I know you love the science on this particular category.
I really do, because the best sources of polyphenols are actually dark chocolate and organic red wine. When you consume high-quality, low-sugar dark chocolate or a clean, biodynamic red wine, you are literally providing the antioxidant terrain your gut bacteria need to flourish. This, in turn, helps regulate your blood pressure and lower inflammation. It's a perfect example of how eating for optimal health doesn't mean eating without pleasure.
Wine and chocolate for gut health?
Oh,
I am fully on board with that.
yeah.
Now, there is one final rule regarding protein. We talked about MPOR earlier, that pathway that builds strong muscle. If someone is trying to build muscle, how much protein do they actually need?
To trigger that MTOR muscle-building pathway, you need to consume exactly 30 grams of protein in one sitting. If you eat less than that, say 15 or 20 grams, you simply don't flip the biological switch. It's all about getting the right dose at the right time.
It's so precise.
It is. It all comes back to the core philosophy of metabolic switching. Moving intentionally between fasting to clean the cells and feasting on the right foods to build them back up, all perfectly synced to the rhythm of your unique biology.
So what does this all mean for you? It means your body is an absolutely perfect machine. It is not broken, and it is not betraying you. It works in beautifully designed cycles. By stepping out of the rigid, stressful, one-size-fits-all diet culture and embracing an individualized approach, you can sync your eating and your fasting to your unique hormonal rhythm. You have the power to heal yourself simply by listening to your biology.
And I'd like to leave you with a final thought to ponder. What if the symptoms you've been fighting your whole life, the random, intense carbohydrate cravings, the deep fatigue, the stubborn weight that just won't budge, aren't signs that your body is failing you? What if, instead, they are brilliant, desperate feedback from your cells, begging you to return to your natural rhythm? The next time you feel an intense craving the week before your cycle, will you fight it with guilt, or will you listen to what your hormones are actually asking for?
That is such a profound way to look at our relationship with our bodies. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this empowers you to start working with your biology, not against it. Until next time.